In this first game, Morphy played against his good friend, James McConnell, in the year 1849 in New Orleans. Morphy had the white pieces, and opened with e4, followed by e5 from McConnell, and then knight f3, queen f6, and yeah, back in the day, people used to play different. Already on his second move, McConnell lushes out with his queen, while Morphy develops his other knight to c3, followed by c6 and d4. At this point, McConnell decides to capture on d4 with his pawn, giving away the only foothold he had on the center of the board. Morphy plays e5, threatening the queen, and McConnell moves her to g6. Morphy keeps advancing his pieces, gaining tempos, this time with his bishop on d3, while McConnell once again wastes a tempo, taking on g2 with his queen. Morphy moves his rook to g1, and McConnell brings his queen to h3. Morphy keeps chasing the queen with rook to g3, and McConnell retreats to h5, but Morphy insists, bringing his rook to g5, and McConnell responds with queen to h3 once again. Morphy brings back his white square bishop to f1, and this time McConnell takes his queen back to e6. At this moment, Morphy decides to capture on d4 with his knight, gaining another tempo on McConnell's queen, who retreats to e7. Morphy now brings his other knight to e4, gaining space and control on the center of the board. McConnell tries to kick away the rook by playing h6, but Morphy brings his knight to f5, attacking the queen. McConnell moves his queen to e6 and Morphy brings his knight to d6, threatening the king. So we have a check by Morphy, and McConnell takes the knight with his bishop. Morphy takes the bishop with his other knight, and repeats the check. This time McConnell has to move the king, and he chooses d8, so he can protect his other bishop. Morphy attacks the queen again with his light square bishop by moving it to c4, and McConnell moves the queen back to e7. Bang! Knight takes on f7 and forks the king and the rook. McConnell has to move his king once again, this time to c7, but Morphy doesn't rush to take the rook, but chooses instead to bring his queen forward to d6, forcing a trade of queens. After Morphy recaptures the queen with his pawn, the only square available for McConnell's king is b6. This allows Morphy to advance his dark square bishop to e3 with a check, and McConnell has to block with his c6 pawn, moving it in front, to c5. Morphy captures the pawn with his bishop, since the bishop is supported by the rook on g5, and McConnell moves his king to a5. Notice that if he had moved to c6, knight to d8 would be checkmate. So after king to a5 by McConnell, we have rook to g3 by Morphy preparing to go a3. McConnell tries to react by playing b5, but in vain. Morphy plays rook to a3 and this is checkmate. It is worth saying at this point that the main characteristic of Morphy's style has become already obvious. He tries to advance all his pieces as fast as he can, and coordinates them in such a masterful way that he makes it hard even for the most skilled opponents to resist. This will become even more obvious to his following games, so stay with us, and enjoy the rest of this Greats of the Game series.